Welcome back, Shalloners. Well, it's Valentine's week, aka Shallontine's week, because you know that Shalloners celebrate Valentine's Day different than everyone else. Some might say better. I might say better. Because we aren't just content to be like, when should I get my boyfriend? Although I did do a gift guide on that last year. You can check it out. Today, we're going to talk about how to put the spark back in a long-term relationship, or maybe a not so long-term relationship, because I get this question from you guys constantly. How do we keep the spark alive? How do we get back there? I'm going to break it all down. Don't you worry. I'm also going to explain why I'm wearing these head things. Well, there's no real explanation. I just like them. Sorry. And if you want to spice up your relationship, don't wear these. Those who can't do teach. But first, I want to remind you that if you have a love question of your own, want to talk privately, find me on my website, shallonlester.com, and click Get Help. Also follow me on Instagram at ShallonXO for some daily inspiration and let you vote on the next video topic. And big announcement, I am now on Cameo. That's right. You can book me for a video shout out for a friend's birthday, if you need a pep talk, if you need me to send a message to the guy you are looking to dump. I'm available. Use the power for good or for evil. It's up to you. But yeah, find me on Cameo. Just search ShallonXO and I'll pop right up. I'd love to connect with you guys. And it's so fun to have a whole new way to do that. And speaking of connections, we're going to talk about how to spice up your relationship today. Now, the secret to sex is communication. And that's not what anyone wants to hear, because communicating about sex is really scary. And it's something that society tells us we're not supposed to do. Our church tells us, our parents tell us, shh, don't talk about all these things. Well, you know I tell it differently. And as a result, I have really good sex and I am good at it. And it's like anything else. You have to practice to be good at it, right? So what are you supposed to do if the practice with your partner is kind of waning? One thing I think is crucial to remember and to keep in mind is that you can't put a spark someplace it never was. You can't get back to a place you've never been. I was in a long-term relationship once, and we just did not have sexual chemistry. We just didn't. And it wasn't because one of us was unattractive. Like, I looked at him, I'm like, you are a beautiful man. You are a beautiful man, and I love you. And we had like couch love, you know, like cuddly and schmoopy, and I love you. But it's like, I didn't want to make out. I could have never had sex with him again, and that would have been fine. And I was young. I was like 23. It's like, this is not how I should have felt. And you shouldn't feel like that, really, honestly, at like any age before menopause. And even then, girl, there's so many injections you can get and hormones. You got to keep that libido rolling. But I was trying to like communicate this to people. We'd been together for a while, and they're like, yeah, like, but you know, the spark fades out and you lose that passion. I was like, yes. The words there, though, are fade and lose. And that implies that you had it at one point. And we did it. You can't get something back on track if it was never on track to begin with. So if you're watching this and you're like desperate to like get that spark back, ask yourself if that's the right verb. Back is an adjective. Or to try to get that spark in there to begin with. If you never were at that place, I don't know, man. It's really, really tough to do. But it's not impossible. So let's operate under the assumption that you were in a place of like that sexiness, you know, because like with my ex, like, you know how when you first start to date, you have like those nights where you stay up all night and you're like hooking up, and then you're talking and you're hooking up more, and it's just like, we never had that. And you kind of can't start to have that 10 months in. Like, it doesn't really work that way. And eventually, you know, that spelled the end of our relationship, because I started to get a real bad wandering eye because I wasn't having those sparks in my relationship and other people were giving them to me. And I was like, that's not good. So I got out of the relationship. We weren't together that long. But so let's say that you are in a position where you did used to have that hot pants feeling. I want you to think back on that point, right? Step number 1 is to think back on the spiciest time in your relationship and look at the factors that were present. And I'm not just saying you guys had just started getting together, you just started dating, because no, you're not going to get back that sense of novelty, but you can recreate the other elements. Were you working less? Were you prioritizing him more? Were you like on this workout thing, so your endorphins are really high, and endorphins create oxytocin, the bonding hormone. They also release more testosterone. It's like studies show they drive up testosterone, and that makes people horny because men have a lot of testosterone and they want to fuck all the time. Like, what were you doing? Were you being very focused on your partner? Were you communicating a lot? Were you still in the newness of the relationship where you felt like you could just share a lot of your stories? either without judgment, because like at that point he still had to like you and like wasn't gonna be like, that's slutty. Or the opposite, you're like, hey, I don't care about this person that much yet, so I'm just gonna like, bleh, I'm gonna like try all these cool things in bed because I kind of don't see this going anywhere. And then like, oh my gosh, wait, we actually fell in love? Didn't see that coming. There are factors that you can replicate, and as much as possible, that's what you got to do to get back there. Then also one thing you got to do, you got to sit down and talk about it, because you can't change what you don't acknowledge, and it's good to get him on board. Sex is a two-person thing, and if you're afraid to talk about it, then you're not going to have as deep of a connection as you could. So sit him down and be like, hey, let's have, and I call this a State of the Union talk about our sex life. Have some wine first. Like, don't do this sober, like on a Tuesday morning, like as you're running out the door to work. Be like, how are you feeling about our sex life? He'll be like, I don't know, good. Like, are you? Do you wish we did it more? Do you wish we tried new things? Do you wish I initiated it more? And he'll be like, yes to all of those things. Get him talking a little bit. And it's a lot easier to talk about sex if you're engaged in some sort of sexy activity. It's easy to talk about any difficult subject if you're using a third party as kind of the conduit for the conversation. Here's what I mean. When I think back on my ex and the time that like our sex life was at the best, not like the one who I didn't have chemistry with, but a different one, we were watching the show called Gigolos. I swear this isn't an ad for them because they're not on anymore, and my heart hurts. My heart hurts. It's a show on Showtime about gigolos, about like male prostitutes, and it's full of like actual sex, like very bad lighting, and it was like funny and sexy, and like the guys like would sleep with someone and they would have like some weird kink or something, and it led to him and I having all of these conversations about like kinky stuff and our sexual experiences and what we think is weird and what we think is cool and what we try and what we wouldn't. And it was so much easier to have that conversation because we were watching something that imported that topic into our lives already. And we were like going at it like rabbits because I mean, we were like watching sex, and it was like porn, but not quite so like in your face. It was like a much easier vehicle, a much like more palatable gateway drug. So I highly recommend you start watching this. Or something else of that nature. Maybe it's 50 Shades of Grey. Maybe it's True Blood. There's a lot of sex in that. Maybe it's The Witcher. There's sex in that. Something that's going to kind of like shake the dust off and get you talking. Because men are stimulated through their body. Women are stimulated through their mind, right? And men are visual creatures. And so that taps into his visualization, like it's a TV show. But it also stimulates your mind and the talking, and that's going to build the connection, right? You also need to talk about it because, girl, you got to get a sense of whether or not this bothers him and where he is in this. Because if he's like a brick wall and he's like, no, I don't want to talk about, I don't want to do that stuff. No, that's gross. It's weird. No. The writing might be on the wall, and all you can do is all you can do. It's a deal breaker to me to date someone who is not sexually adventurous. Now, I'm not saying I got to have sex in an Elmo costume in the middle of Times Square, but I wouldn't hate it if it was on the table. Do you know what I mean? Because then that means he's going to be open-minded, and I can communicate things, whether they're just like fantasy dirty talk in the moment. You know, you don't have to execute every single bit of dirty talk, please. Or more importantly, he's open to communicating in a variety of other categories. I don't know anyone who is really, really like bad in bed in terms, and I consider bad in bed not as a skill set necessarily, but as like a communication skill set. I don't know anyone who's really like shut down in that category, but emotionally in touch in another one. That's low emotional IQ, no matter how you slice it, right? Because if you're like, don't talk about my no parts. I'm like, no. Sex is the glue that holds people together. It is. You can't have it, and you can't only have a relationship that embodies that, because then you don't have like the trust and the emotional intimacy, but you can't have a relationship that's devoid of it. And if he's not willing to talk about it and change it and at least see that, hey, maybe this is a category we can work on, either he's incapable, low IQ, or he doesn't care. And this works for him. Having sex once a month, no big deal for him. Oh, but maybe he's doing that because he's depressed or he's smoking a lot of weed. Those are still choices. It's not a choice to have depression. It is a choice to not do anything about it. It's a choice to not be on antibiotics or antidepressants or be going to therapy or whatever. And it's like, hey, you can lead a horse to water. You can't make him drink. And if you keep bringing this up and with increasing points of view of I am not getting what I need in this relationship. And you can try to shame me because it's from a sexual nature and you think maybe, oh, I shouldn't need that and a nice girl wouldn't need this. Well, I do. And maybe I'm not a nice girl. Okay? This is what you need. And your standards and your needs are completely healthy and valid. Women get the message that we should be ashamed of our sexual needs and our sexual behaviors 24 motherfucking hours a day. I'm sure you guys saw this, like in your Instagram feed. On the Oscars, this feminine hygiene company called Freedom Mom made this commercial about postpartum. They make like postpartum products. So it's like products to use after you have a baby, because basically your vag gets like blown out like someone shot a shotgun from the inside out and you're just like, bleh. And you need like these squirt bottles and these pads and all this crazy stuff. And they deemed the commercial too graphic. And it was like a woman on a toilet. I mean, you don't like, obviously you don't see anything, but she's like changing a pad and we're like, oof. Like even if you've never had a baby, you've had your period and you're like, oh God, I've been there. The people who made these rules, old white men, categorized this commercial in the same category as advertising about guns and cigarettes. That's how society makes us feel about our body. Our body is either poison or it's deadly and dangerous, but not in like a fun, sexy way. It's like gross and needs to be regulated and like sanitized and oppressed and shut the fuck up. I will not tolerate that shit in my relationships. I won't tolerate it in society, and I can only do so much as a single person, but I'll be damned if I'm going to take it from a boyfriend. No chance. No chance. So if that's the vibe you're getting, if he's gaslighting you, why do you need so much sex? What kind of slut are you? Baby girl, you send him to me. I will cyberbully anyone you want. Anyone you want. Hit me on Cameo. I will cyberbully someone for you on Cameo if they treat you like that. Absolutely. Absolutely. I am a feminine gun for hire. Ha! But hopefully, this is not his reaction. Hopefully, he is a woke bae or simply a dude who likes sex. Hello? And he's like, yeah, I mean, that'd be great. We should like, yeah, like let's spice things up, but I don't know how. One recommendation, and bear with me, is to schedule sex. I know. And when I first was like, heard about this and someone suggested, I was like, that's like the least sexy thing I can think of, is like pencil you in, Google alert, calendar invite. But I started to think about it. I don't like to have sex after I've eaten a lot. Like I hate it. I feel like I'm full and I don't want to be jostled and like shaken like a big 2-liter bottle of soda. I feel like I'm just going to like throw up everywhere. I hate it. So my most happily married friend, her greatest advice is have sex before you go to dinner. Absolutely. Like get it on before you go to dinner. You've got that flush, you've got the endorphins. So the bonding hormone is on. You're like playing footsie under the table and then you can eat all the pasta you want, unlimited breadsticks. You can come home and go to bed, girl. You don't have to feel guilty. It's amazing. Where's I going with this? Oh, scheduling sex. Now I'm thinking about breadsticks. Like, I want to have sex with breadsticks. Just make out with those buttery breadsticks. So try scheduling it because it's going to give you something to look forward to, right? And then you can like kind of build the tension because a lot of times in long-term relationships, you miss that sexual tension. You know what it's going to be like. He knows how to get you off, vice versa, blah, blah, blah. Or it's just like, ugh, you again. And day-to-day stuff gets in the way. And like familiarity is the opposite of lust, right? Like I feel super lusty towards a guy that like, I don't have to see brush his teeth. And are those your boxers on the floor? Did you leave that wet towel in the bed? Just the day-to-day minutia that's so unsexy. And that's why like, I don't want to live with the guy ever again. Like I want to maintain that veil of sexiness and that distance to miss them. So that's another thing. Put a little distance between you guys. Don't see each other every single night. Instead of like, oh, it's a sleepover. Here I am in my ugly pajamas at 5 p.m. again. No, go out to dinner, make out on the street corner, and go home. Go home. Even if it's like you guys live together. This is where the scheduling comes in. Set the intentions. Like, hey, Thursday night, we're getting it on. So I'm going to wear the lingerie under my outfit. I'm going to like take a little picture for him in the bathroom at the office so he can see. I'm going to sext him all day long. I'm going to say, oh, I'm going to do these things to you tonight. 7 p.m. You're going to be inside me. Oh, let's go. And it's going to build that tension where before you only had the familiarity, right? You got to get back to that. Also, porn. Try porn. And we talked about this a little bit. If you can't do porn, do gigolos. But if you're going to watch porn, only do it if you truly are like comfortable with it. Do you know what I mean? Like if this is something that's outside your comfort zone, you don't want to watch him watching another girl, don't do it, girl. It's completely fine. It's completely fine. Like, you know, but, you know, give it a try. And one of my friends, she's like, we'd like to watch porn, like nothing like crazy hardcore, but then we'll like act it out. Like we'll like recreate it, you know, some parts, and like even recreate like what they say. She's like, but we go for ones that are much more like story driven. It's not like, you know, like a gangbang. Like, if that's what you're into, great, do that. Okay. And this point, remember when I said sex is like anything else, you got to practice to be good at it? You got to practice, girl. And that means practicing by yourself. You know what I mean? I hate the word. I hate it. Like it's so Law and Ordery. It's like we caught the part masturbating on the nuns. Ugh, God, stop. Like, it's just not a phrase I say or like, no. So I like the term J off because guys say jerk off. It's so like, ugh, that's also like violent and gross. So J is like, J's a nice little letter. It's like, ooh, it's like a little swoop. You got to practice to be good at something, and you got to practice by yourself. If you don't know how to work the equipment, do not expect anyone else to know how, okay? It's like if your friend came over to spend the night and they wanted to take a shower, trying to use someone else's shower is agony, right? It's like I use showers every single day, and yet I get into someone else's and it's like an episode of Naked and Afraid. I'm like, what is this thing? And how would you like it if you're like, hey, how do I use a shower? And they're like, I don't know. I don't want to touch it. I don't just like touch it and use it when I'm like by myself. Like you have to figure it out, and then you have to tell me, and then you have to do it when I need a shower. Like you have to turn it on for me. You'd be like, what the fuck is happening? Are you having a stroke? What are you talking about? That would be crazy. It's more crazy if it's your own body and you're like, it's my dirty no-no parts. Okay. It's always blown my mind that religion is like, religious people are the ones driving this body shame. Like you shouldn't touch your body. Wait, but God made your body, right? So are you saying that God's creation is like dirty and gross? Oh, that's interesting. I wonder how he's going to feel about that when the rapture comes. He's going to come down and be like, hey, Linda, do you remember that time you said the clitoris was dirty and disgusting? I made that. I'm actually the artisan there. Would you like to talk about that? You too, Karen, come on over. Yeah, no, come on over, Deb. Yeah, Were you just at TGI Fridays and you choked to death on your jalapeno poppers? Come on over. I have something to say to you. You don't want to piss off Jesus and God. They made you. So take some time to get comfortable with your body, right? Solo, independent. And we think like, oh, like that's going to take away from our relationship and I can't like waste it by myself because then that means I'm probably going to want to have sex with my boyfriend less. It's actually not that way. It's truly not. Like studies show it, like the more you do sexy things, the more you want to do sexy things. It's like exercising. The more you go to the gym, the more you want to go to the gym. And again, you got to practice to be good. Think of a musician, think of a band, like Fall Out Boy, right? No one would blame Pete Wentz for practicing the bass, which he should, he's not very good at it, practicing the bass like on his own. No, you only have to play, you're only allowed to play the bass when you're playing in a concert. That's going to lead to some really bad playing. That doesn't make any sense, right? Sexual skills are the same. They're the same. You don't have to do it morning, noon, and night, but it is good for you. You know what? Do it morning, noon, and night if you want, because you got to get comfortable with your body. Do you know why I like to date younger guys? Because they like to date older girls. Do you know why they like to date older girls? Because we are better in bed. Why? It's not just that we have more skills. It's that we know what we like and we know what we don't, and we're not afraid to say it and do this, do that, do less of that, more of this. And I'm like, why would a guy like that? Like that seems like that would be scary and frightening for him. It's like more of this, less of that. And I've had, because I ask every single young dude that I date, I was like, why is that a good thing for you? And he's like, I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know what I'm doing. He's like, do you know how complicated a woman's body is? It's so complex. Like a man's is so simple. It's like driving an automatic car that you get from Hertz. Like, it's just like, well, the Kia Rio, put it in drive, here we go. He's like, a woman's body is like a suicide door Maybach. You're like, I don't even know how to get into this thing, let alone start it up and make it go. Like, forget about it. He's like, so I want someone who's gonna tell me, because I want to please you. Like, you know, cute boy that I'm seeing, he's like, any dude can get themselves off, like in sex. Like, that's not like anything to brag about. I want to get the girl off, and I want to be with the girl who knows how to do that herself, so that like this is a collaborative effort. He's like, isn't that the point? It's like a 2-person activity. He's like, I just literally, if all I cared about is me and my experience, I would just get a prostitute so that I didn't care and I didn't have to care. If I'm hooking up with someone, it's because I like her and I want her to have a good time. I was like, daddy, so cute and so young, you know? But that's why we mesh well, because it's like, I know what I like and I'm not afraid to communicate. I mean, I'm not like rigid, but it's like, I'm amenable to having conversations, you know? And if it's something I don't like or don't want to try, I know why and I can communicate it. Not just like dirty no parts. Nah, boy, no. Like, no. So, in sum, you got to think about when you were at your sexiest with this person, right? You got to talk about it, engage his reaction, because maybe he's not into this and you need to know. Relationships, like sex, are a 2-person activity, and you shouldn't be in this relationship by yourself trying to drag him up the hill of like sexual satisfaction. Baloney. Try some new things. Maybe one thing I used to do with an old boyfriend, I'd be like, all right, let's have a dog fiesta outside my door. Oh, I want to be a part of it. We would be like, okay, $50 limit. We'd each go into a sex store and we would like buy a present. Like, we would just buy something. And someone was like, edible underwear, fun condoms, or a vibrator, or whatever it is. And like, they were just funny and silly. Sometimes it was a costume. And it was like, this was fun. It was like a fun shopping expedition. It got us talking about things. And even if we didn't use the stuff, and even if we defaulted to the same old vanilla, it doesn't matter, because it was a whole sexy world that we like stepped into for a little bit. And then that became more normal. And then sex and that feeling was incorporated into our relationship more. And that is truly the goal, right? Because spice shouldn't be like a spike here, a spike there, Valentine's Day, it's your birthday, it's our anniversary. It's like you cultivate an attitude of sexual expression and openness that you carry with you throughout your whole relationship, and that leads to better communication and higher satisfaction overall in all categories. Get out there. Oh, coconut oil as lube. Oh, by the way, speaking of sexy stuff, I have an Amazon affiliate storefront. I'm gonna put the link down there. You can shop some of my sexy little things, like from the lube I like to good condoms to Plan B, which is on Amazon. Yep, it's not on Prime though. It's $12 though. So you kind of have to plan your slutty activities a little ahead of time. Like, it's gonna take 3 or 4 days to get there, and then by then it won't work. So have it stockpiled, give it out to your friends. Everyone can use some extra Plan B. All right, Shalloners, like I said, follow me on Instagram at ShallonXO. Shallontine's Day. Find me on Cameo if you would like a shout out. And if you have a love question, find me on my website, shallonlester.com.